called a fossil fuel. And remember that coal is just carbon, and 90% of our coal comes from this period, which is why it's called the Carboniferous. In this episode, we're only talking about the first half of that period, a sub-period known as the Mississippi. The world wasn't as warm as it was in the Ordovician or in the Silurian. It was much more temperate, but the sea level was still higher than it is today, hundreds of feet higher. So the visible continents were much smaller, with much of the continental shelves submerged in shallow seas. Thus, it was obviously a much more humid environment. And most of these early tetrapods would have looked like large salamanders, but some of them were starting to look more like lizards, too. And at this point in our cladogram, we come to a fork in the road. On the left, we have reptiliomorphs, and that's not just reptiles, but anything that looks like reptiles, basically anything that looks lizard-like, which would include some of our early ancestors as well. We could also call this group Anthracosauria because it includes reptile-like amphibians in the sense that they're amphibious, but not actually amphibians. On the right, we have Batrachomorpha, which means frog form, meaning that true amphibians are down this path. And now you may have thought that Acanthostega, Ichthyostega, Hynerpeton, Simuria, and all those were amphibians, and they are in the sense that they can live both on land and in water, but that's not a taxonomic clade. Another way to explain this is that dogs, cats, weasels, seals, mongooses, and hyenas all belong to the order Carnivora. Even pandas are part of that group, although they're not carnivorous. Crocodiles definitely are carnivorous, but they're not part of the order Carnivora because that's just a taxonomic grouping of mammals based on their phylogeny and the type of teeth that they have. So Carnivora doesn't mean everything that is carnivorous, nor does it mean that all carnivorans are carnivores. Likewise, amphibia doesn't mean everything that is amphibious. It's a taxonomic clade including every axolotl, newt, or salamander, frog, or toad, along with a few other things that you've never heard of and don't want to meet. Labyrinthodonts, for example. These other animals we saw along the way up here weren't actually amphibians, they were just basal tetrapods, though it may be difficult to see the difference. On the more reptilian side were semi-amphibious anthracosaurs with drier, thicker skin like modern toads have, and something else too. A significant difference between reptiliforms and amphibians is that amphibians can absorb all sorts of chemicals through their skin, including oxygen, both on land and in water. There are a few amphibians that have even lost their lungs and don't have gills either because if they're small and they're not very active, they don't need them. Because their skin is so permeable, they're also at risk of infection through osmosis. Reptiliforms are different because their skin is keratinized, meaning that there's a layer of keratin proteins protecting against infection, as well as heat loss and UV radiation and so on, and helps the skin from drying out. This is just what you'd expect to evolve in anything spending a lot of time in the open air and direct sunlight. Most chemicals will not soak through your skin because you have...
Thank you, Aron. We're all very cool. I didn't have very good nerve control in this level because I wanted to beat it so bad. Because I wanted to get it over with. I wish I liked this level more, but I don't. I don't like this level that much. At least it didn't surpass my Erebus attempts. That would have been embarrassing, but it got very close. I know that much. Okay. 4,064, 4064 plus... 8,187 attempts. I wish I liked that level more because it's a well-constructed level, but to be honest, I didn't have that much fun. I did not have that much fun with it at all. This is my first tier 28 level, I think, because paroxysm is tier 29, right? Let me check. 28. Yep. I have tier 2 of these. Hatred, hyperparadox. Oh. I went to the wrong number. Yeah, okay. This is harder than paroxysm for me, though. I know that paroxysm is generally harder, but this was harder than paroxysm for me because I got lucky on paroxysm and unlucky on this. That and because paroxysm has a kind of gameplay I'm better at. Did I delete the level? No, I didn't. Dislike. Sure doing. Yep. That's all I've got. Do I recommend this level? If you don't like, no, I don't recommend this level, but you might as well try it. It's accessible. It's accessible for its difficulty, so I guess I'd recommend it as a hardest, but as a random level to beat, no, not really.